Imagine sitting on a crowded subway, trying to get home after a long day, when suddenly a woman blocks a teenager from sitting in an empty seat, all because of the color of his skin. It sounds shocking, right? But that's exactly what happened in this real-life story, where a simple act of racism set off a chain of events that would change everything. Within just 60 minutes, the woman's career, and her entire life, began to crumble. The teenager, not willing to stay silent, captured everything on his phone. What followed next was a public backlash so intense that even she couldn't escape it. But what led to this moment? Who was this woman, and what happened in those critical 60 minutes? Stick around as we dive into this incredible story, where every decision is about to have lasting consequences. The woman in question, let's call her Emily, had always prided herself on her professional reputation. A well-known figure in her industry, she held a high-ranking job at a prestigious company. From the outside, it looked like she had it all: status, power, respect. But what no one knew was that Emily's tolerance for other people, especially those she deemed different, was low. Her actions on that subway were not a spur-of-the-moment decision. They were driven by deeply rooted prejudices, though most people around her had no idea. The teenager, whose name was Marcus, had just finished a long day at school. Tired but determined to get home, he found an empty seat near Emily. It was the only available spot, but as he began to sit down, Emily's hand shot out, blocking him. "This seat's taken," she said, without hesitation. Marcus was stunned, unsure how to respond, but he knew something wasn't right. He pulled out his phone, recording the moment. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, unsure how to react. He had never experienced something like this before. In his mind, he replayed the countless times he'd been told that racism was something of the past, something that was fading away. But here it was, in full force, right in front of him. As Emily's hand remained firmly in place, he could feel the eyes of other passengers shifting uncomfortably, some pretending not to notice, others too afraid to speak up. But Marcus wasn't about to let this slide. He raised his phone, the red light flashing as he began recording. The tension in the subway car thickened. Emily, realizing she was being filmed, turned red with anger. "You need to learn some respect," she snapped. "This is my seat." Marcus' hands shook as he filmed, but he wasn't backing down. His voice, though calm, held the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "Respect? How about treating people equally?" he said. The words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, the only sound was the rattling of the train as it sped along the tracks. Meanwhile, a few seats away, an elderly woman watched the scene unfold. Her expression was one of disbelief. She had seen the way Emily had spoken to Marcus, and a fire sparked within her. She was no stranger to discrimination herself. Growing up in a time when being different was a crime, she fought her entire life for equality. Seeing Marcus stand his ground reminded her of her own battles. She couldn't just sit there any longer. But before she could act, the train screeched to a halt. People rushed to get off, and the moment passed, leaving behind an unspoken tension. As Marcus stepped off the train, his phone still recording, the video had already started to go viral. His courage, unknowingly, had sparked something much bigger than just a subway confrontation. But Emily, unaware of the storm that was about to hit, walked off the train with the same arrogance that had gotten her into this mess in the first place. What Marcus didn't know yet was that this would only be the beginning. The ripple effect of that video was about to change both their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. By the time Marcus uploaded the video to social media, it was already spreading like wildfire. His phone buzzed nonstop with notifications, likes, shares, comments. People from all over the world were watching. Some were furious at Emily's blatant racism. Others were applauding Marcus for standing up for himself. But among the thousands of voices, one message stood out. It was from a journalist who had seen the video and wanted to speak with Marcus about the incident. The next day, the story hit the news. Emily's face was everywhere. News outlets replayed the video on loop, analyzing every moment, every word. The internet was unforgiving. Comments flooded in, calling for her to be held accountable, for her career to be ruined. Her employer, a high-profile corporation, quickly distanced itself from her. They released a statement condemning her actions, saying they didn't align with their values. The backlash was swift, intense, and relentless. Emily tried to stay under the radar, but it was impossible. Her phone rang constantly. Some calls were from reporters, others from former colleagues, now asking if the rumors were true. Her social media accounts were bombarded with angry messages. As the hours passed, the weight of the situation started to sink in. She realized she was losing control. Her life, once so carefully curated, was unraveling with every passing minute. Then came the final blow. A video surfaced showing Emily at a company event, laughing with colleagues while making racially insensitive jokes. The footage was from years ago, but it felt like a damning confirmation of what the public had suspected all along. Her employer wasted no time. In a stunning move, they issued a statement letting her go. In the midst of all this chaos, Marcus was feeling something he hadn't. It all started when a former colleague of Emily's anonymously leaked a series of emails to the press. These emails, dated back several years, revealed a pattern of racial microaggressions, insensitive comments, and a long history of questionable behavior that was far worse than anyone had realized. The backlash from those emails was swift. Emily's argument that she was the victim of a social media mob began to crumble. Now the public had evidence, real, undeniable proof, that her prejudices were not isolated incidents, but part of a much deeper, systemic problem in her character. The revelation rocked the conversation to its core. People who had previously questioned Marcus's actions now understood the full scope of what he had experienced on that subway. His fight, once seen as a personal confrontation, had now become a part of a larger cultural shift. Marcus became a symbol for standing up to injustice, but also a voice for the importance of truth. As the public rallied behind him, Emily's career, already hanging by a thread, came to a screeching halt. Her once loyal clients, partners, and friends distanced themselves, realizing they could no longer associate with her. But just when it seemed like Emily's story was over, something unexpected happened. In a